Judging from the end of episode 8, it seems like everything is really going to start hitting the fan.
Yes.
Can you talk about that and what's coming out of the freezers?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, everything has sort of been building and building, and now all the worlds are colliding. I mean, you've got Diego, who had the first sort of literally came in punching to Holden, just sort of, the big physical altercation that they have, and as well as you have sort of all these different elements of you meeting out Edgar now. What's the relevance of the freezer? Apparently it takes you to the realm some way. So there's a whole bunch of different elements, and it's definitely going to get more and more dangerous as we continue on.
Is it possible that Hollow Sky has nobler intentions than Holden or others might realize?
With Frost being gone, now it's run by Yellow Jacket and Schumacher sort of co-parts. It does seem that perhaps some of the negative connotation that Frost had maybe has slipped away. So, Yellow Jacket has kind of taken it under his wing almost as like a noble cause, as you said yourself. So perhaps there could be a way that maybe they're fighting the same battle for the sort of the same causes. So it'd be interesting to see if they were ever able to get on the same page again.
Would you ever like to see them working together?
I mean, if they had similar goals, I think so. I think it would be tough now that Yellow Jacket and Schumacher have sort of, they were the reason why, unfortunately, Kevin had to pass away, which is Holden's best friend and Jeff's brother. So I think it would be tough for them to work together now, but maybe an alliance in dire need could be arranged.
Willa and Charlie finally had a really good conversation last week and learned a lot about each other. What was it like for you to see and hear about in the script?
Yeah, that was a big meeting when we saw it in the script. First, obviously, their appearance together in the bowling alley the week before, and then Willa's, obviously, confrontation when she goes in, breaks into the room with a gun and goes like, hey, sit down, we're talking. And even just reading it and then watching it on screen, I mean, Eden and Dylan did an absolutely fantastic job. So just two formidable actresses to work with. So to see that dynamic together on screen and almost an understanding between them now, as they sort of both came in quite heated, but realized they were both dealing with their own demons. So it was definitely a cool dynamic. I'm glad they explored it.
And Luke admitted that he kind of has feelings for Willa.
Yes.
What did you think when you read that?
That was a big turning point for those characters, for Willa and Luke. I mean, it had been sort of teased of, is this something that maybe we're seeing? Is there a connection between them? But Luke finally admitting those feelings and saying like, hey, like I have this sort of harboring sort of love or like for you kind of a thing was definitely a big point to know that, hey, like, there definitely was a connection between there, and like how far that's going to go now that he sort of said, I have to back off. Is interesting because clearly there was a connection there. It wasn't just in our minds.
Well, speaking of Luke, it seems like a lot is just piling on him. It seems like there's some resentment growing a little bit. Are we going to see that picked up in episodes 9 and 10?
Absolutely. Luke has had a really tough time sort of just struggling being sort of the underdog of the family. He feels sort of always been living in the shadow of Holden, especially now that he's awake, that everyone's sort of nurturing him but not really caring about where he's going, what he's doing. He had that unfortunate, Jackie once again sort of used him for her own sort of gain, and so he's finally found sort of the solace in Willa, but other than that, he's very angry. You see that big outburst to Diane, played by Romy in the last episode as well, so he definitely continues sort of down that path, and I'm hoping for his sake he's able to find some sort of peace with it, because at the moment he is a very angry teen.
Of course, the family's going to have some more drama now that Dad's in jail.
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, Tom did not. That went from bad to worse real quick in the jail. So exactly, there is some drama that they are going to have to deal with, and hopefully Tom hasn't gotten himself into too much sort of in deep water, that they're able to hopefully sweet talk the sheriff out of there.
Now, for you as an actor, in the last couple of episodes, we've had a lot of revelations. Does it feel good to you to be learning more about Holden and the realms and that sort of thing?
It's so much fun to watch this story on sort of unfold on screen, both when we're reading it, but also to see it come to life on TV, and having the fans watch it too. The story is written it's so well. We have such a creative and amazing writing team, and the creator, Adam Nussdorf, who created this amazing story. So to explore the different sides of my character, Holden, and also see all of his journeys and connections on screen. I think it's been laid out really well, and I've been very much looking forward to how the audience has been taking it, and everyone seems to be enjoying it.
Well, last time we talked, we weren't sure if the show was going to be released once per week, but now that it is, what's it like to see the fans on social media talking about the episode week to week?
It's fun. You get that sort of expectation where, we get to talk every week when we're live tweeting, and then you get to see sort of that build up, you know what I mean, of, the big cliffhanger of the episode before, the build up to the next episode of what's going to go down in those trailers that are released. So it kind of, it's a fun way to sort of keep that nervousness and sort of, anticipation for the next episode. So it's fun to see what the fans think and predict for the next episode now, and everyone's now on the same page. You know how much everyone's seen, so you get to sort of talk about all the different sort of events that have happened in the episode before.
Well, speaking of things for people to be nervous about, Diego and what his, the people of his realm are doing, can we talk about that?
Yes, Diego sort of came in as, you knew he was dangerous, and then, from when he offed his parents in the car, which was crazy, going forward, you knew that he was not one to be messed with, and exactly, you saw him stand up to Holden, which, really hasn't been something we'd be able to see so far, and it was a formidable sort of physicality with him, and as well, now he's had this sort of if some sort of maybe vision sort of altercate with Holden and Charlie, showing them sort of the death of the world that they know. So he's definitely dangerous and definitely has foreseen a very dark future for Charlie, Holden, and the rest of the world. So he seems to be someone that keeps getting more and more dangerous.
What's something you're allowed to tease about the season finale?
Ooh, something about the season finale. That I can tease something a little about the next episode as well.
Go for it.
Which would be cool. So when we read the script and when we were shooting it, we always like to tease that episode 8 was a little bit like our Ocean's 11 episode. Like there's kind of like a heist that goes down between some of the characters that have to go in. And as you saw, they needed to somehow get Edgar out of that hospital, as I referenced last episode. So it'll be interesting to see how, what sort of hats that they put on and how sort of their plan unfolds to get Edgar out of the hospital next episode. So it should be kind of cool. It was fun to shoot.
Were you surprised that when Holden met Edgar, it wasn't like this big bad confrontation? It was like, hey, you're cool.
And exactly, everyone we've seen that has come out of the realm in this, with Diego and sort of all the stuff this episode has always been something that has been either evil or has been wanting to hurt Holden. And seeing this guy that can conjure fire out of midair and has this very odd look to his eye, you assume that he was going to be, once again, a baddie coming in. But exactly, somehow seems to be actually a friendly-faced Edgar who is willing to help Holden and sort of help him on his journey. So I think Holden definitely needed someone to give him a little bit of advice. So hopefully he can confide in Edgar a little bit and get some answers from him.
Now, Freeform has a number of sci-fi type shows coming up, and they already have Shadowhunters. They got Siren and Cloak and Dagger coming up. Would you ever like to see a crossover?
Absolutely. I think it would be super cool. I've talked about this earlier that we do have realm travel, and so there is sort of interworld travel that's there. So who knows where maybe we would pop up in another show. That would be pretty cool.
And are you able to say if season 2 ends on a cliffhanger?
I would say that there are some finalities that we've been journeying through the second season. There's some big stuff that's going to happen, some big stuff's going to go down. But I can say that there are perhaps a few threads that are left open-ended that sort of in the rubble of the finale where all the answers are sort of there. There are a few loose ends that perhaps lead somewhere that we don't know quite yet where they go. So there might be a cool cliffhanger that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Now, of the episodes that we have seen of season 2, is there a particular sequence that just blew you away?
I was always looking forward to episode 6 with the big bowling alley scene. Just with all of those characters. I mean, we'd shot 15 episodes where all of those characters had never been in the same room. So for us, that unbelievable sort of awkward tension in the room where the audience was like, oh my gosh, they're all in the same room finally together. I was looking forward to the reaction of seeing what everyone was going to think, because when we all read it, we were all texting each other going like, oh my gosh, we're all finally getting to be in one room together, and all the sort of the backgrounds. And as well for me, at the end of that sequence, I got to do all the action stuff with Diego, with him coming and almost shoving Holden's face into the ball return, telekinetically throwing bowling balls at him. So for me, that sequence, both for action and for drama, was one that I was definitely looking forward to getting on the screen.
Well, getting everybody back together, like, in the same room, were there two characters you really wanted to see?
In the same room together?
Yeah, how they, popped.
But, before I read it, I was always really wanting to see, and as they truly are on screen, Willa and Charlie in the same room, because they'd always sort of not quite cross paths, so that was going to be an interesting one, which it was on screen. And I'm biased because I loved working with them too, but getting Yellow Jacket and Holden back in a room together, I mean, they had some pretty interesting times last season with Yellow Jacket having the upper hand and then Holden coming in and, beating the pulp out of him at one point. So I think the tension between those characters is always fun to play with too.
Do you think there are some abilities of Holden's that we have not seen yet?
I think there are. I think that he's sort of continuing to tap into these abilities, and you see him at sort of the beginning of the season getting more familiar with, the telekinetic aspects of those. But I do believe that, he was sort of, as he was referenced in the first one, a bit of the chosen one. So what abilities that he has in sort of the fullest ability, I'm not quite sure he even knows at this point. So it will be interesting to see when certain things come across what he's able to do.
And when you filmed the sequence with Edgar, did you get a Clark Kent vibe, or did anybody make any jokes about that when you were filming?
Me and Jeff definitely did to each other. It was very fun with our sort of button-up shirts and our glasses and our briefcases. So it was kind of cool to assume a character, assuming another character, kind of putting on a disguise. So it was a very Clark Kent-esque disguise, being obviously not very disguised at the same time, but enough to get in the room. So yeah, me and Jeff were joking to each other about that.
Dr. Chang, you mean?
Yeah, of course, Dr. Chang. How could I be so silly?
And what do you have to say to fans who really want to be on season 3?
Who want to be on season 3?
No, who want there to be.
I was going to say, I was like, well, audition. No,
no.
I would say that I'm counted among you. I mean, I would love them to, be able to explore more of these characters, as I would love to be able to act and explore more of the characters that I get to play. So I would say keep your fingers crossed and stay tuned for hopefully some good news.